She has carried a devastating secret since the fever nearly killed her at 14. Her body cannot bear children. So when the Dragon Emperor Roger demands a bride capable of giving him an heir in exchange for saving her kingdom from ruin, Jacqueline knows accepting the contract is signing her own death warrant. But her father agrees before she can confess the truth. Suddenly, the lady who has spent years hiding her infertility is walking into the Emperor's palace as his promised bride, carrying a secret that could destroy everyone she loves. Except Jacqueline isn't the only woman there. 12 daughters of noble houses have been summoned to the Celestial Spire to compete for the Dragon Emperor's favor. Not because he wants a wife, but because he needs a mate, a woman capable of bearing the heir that will secure his dynasty. Now, Jacqueline isn't just pretending to be whole. She's competing against women who are everything she can never be. She must survive each trial designed to prove fertility and worthiness, win enough favor to avoid early exposure, all while praying she'll be eliminated before anyone discovers the truth. Unfortunately, every moment in Roger's presence makes her body respond in ways she thought impossible. The warmth of his hand, the intensity of his golden gaze, the strange pull that makes her want to step closer instead of running away. And the longer Jacqueline endures the trials, the harder it becomes to maintain the careful distance between her heart and his. She tells herself it's merely physical attraction, a cruel trick her broken body is playing, anything but what Mira whispers it might be. Because if this connection isn't just chemistry, if it's the legendary soul bond forming between true mates, then Jacqueline faces an impossible choice. Let him discover her secret and watch everything crumble, or walk away from the one man who makes her feel whole, and that would destroy them both. If you believe in the power of second chances and love that heals the deepest scars, please subscribe and join our community. We are so close to our goal of 1,000 subscribers, and every single one of you helps us bring more stories of resilience and hope to life. Share this story with someone who needs to know that even when you feel broken, you are still worthy of being chosen. Let's continue our story. Chapter 1. 3 weeks before Jacqueline's world shattered, her father summoned her to his study with trembling hands and defeat in his eyes. The Emperor's letter lay open on his desk, ornate script offering salvation at a price. 1 daughter for debt forgiveness, 1 womb for military protection, 1 marriage to prevent Ardenmoor's complete collapse. "You're 23, her father said, unable to meet her gaze. "Unmarried. This is Providence, Jacqueline." She wanted to scream the truth then, that the fever at 14 had stolen more than her childhood, that the physician's whispered verdict had been a death, sentence of a different kind. But her father's desperate hope stopped the words in her throat. He didn't know. He'd never known. And if she told him now, watching him crumble would hurt worse than the lie. The journey to the Celestial Spire took 5 days. Mira, her handmaid and only confidant, tried to offer comfort through increasingly disturbing rumors. "They say he's had 6 wives," Mira whispered as their carriage rattled over mountain roads. "All dead under mysterious circumstances. Dragon lords consume their mates, they say. Perhaps," she hesitated, glancing at Jacqueline's pale face, "perhaps he'll reject you quickly. Before anyone discovers I'm defective," Jacqueline finished bitterly. For the first time in years, her secret felt like salvation instead of shame. If the Emperor was truly a monster, maybe her broken body would repel him. Maybe she'd be sent home in disgrace. But alive. That fragile hope died the moment Lord Theron, the Emperor's chief advisor, greeted her in the palace courtyard. Behind her stood 11 other women, each more beautiful and vibrant than the last. "Welcome to the trials of the worthy," Theron announced, his voice cutting through her shock like ice. 12 candidates, 12 moons, 12 tests designed to assess your suitability to bear and raise the imperial heir. Only 1 will become empress. The rest will return home with generous dowries and our gratitude. Jacqueline's vision blurred. Not a wedding, a competition, a fertility trial. That night, gathered in the candidate's wing, Jacqueline tried to make herself invisible among the chatter of excited noblewomen comparing their chances. Most were younger, 18, 19, with the easy confidence of women whose bodies worked as they should. Then Lady Seraphine appeared at her elbow, beautiful and sharp as cut glass. The Duchess's daughter studied Jacqueline with predatory interest, her gaze lingering on the slight shadows under Jacqueline's eyes, the tension in her shoulders, the way she stood apart from the others. "You're different from them," Seraphine said softly, her smile never reaching her eyes. "I can smell desperation. Whatever you're hiding, I'll find it." Jacqueline's blood turned to ice, but she forced herself to meet Seraphine's stare. "Perhaps you're simply smelling your own ambition?" Seraphine laughed, a crystalline sound that held no warmth. "We'll see. The trials have a way of exposing everyone's secrets eventually." As she walked away, Jacqueline's hands began to shake. She had 12 trials to survive, 12 opportunities to be discovered, and at least one rival who'd already sensed the truth. Chapter 2. The great hall of the Celestial Spire gleamed with morning light as the 12 candidates assembled for the first trial. Jacqueline's stomach churned as she watched the others present their offerings. Lady Alara brought a mare heavy with foal. Another candidate unveiled a tree bursting with unseasonable blossoms, and Seraphine presented an ornate golden womb carved with fertility blessings from every known religion. Each gift screamed of creation, of life waiting to be born. Each was everything Jacqueline could never be. When her turn came, Jacqueline's hands trembled as she unrolled the parchment she'd worked on until dawn. The crowd murmured in confusion. No symbols, no pregnant animals, just architectural drawings of a building with careful annotations. "An orphanage," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "For the children already born, but forgotten. Creating life is sacred, but so is nurturing the life that already exists. A true empress must do both." The silence that followed felt like judgment. Lord Theron's expression darkened. Several candidates exchanged smug glances. Jacqueline had gambled everything on challenging the premise of the trial itself, and she was losing. Then Roger stood from his throne. The Dragon Emperor moved with liquid grace as he descended the dais, his golden eyes fixed on Jacqueline with an intensity that made her breath catch. Up close, he was devastating. Sharp cheekbones, dark hair falling past his shoulders, and a presence that filled the space around him like heat from a forge. "Explain this section," he said, pointing to her drawings. "The Eastern Wing." For the next 20 minutes, they discussed architecture, child welfare, and the responsibility of power. Roger asked questions that revealed a keen mind and genuine concern for his people. Jacqueline forgot to be afraid, forgot to measure her words, forgot everything except the exhilaration of being truly heard. "You challenge the trial's premise," Roger said finally, something like approval in his voice. "Most would consider that disrespectful. Most would be too afraid to speak truth to power," Jacqueline replied before she could stop herself. "I thought you deserved better than empty flattery." A slow smile transformed his face. "You thought?" "Correctly, Lady Jacqueline." He extended his hand to help her gather her drawings, and when their fingers touched, fire raced up Jacqueline's arm. Not pain, something far more dangerous. A warmth that spread from that point of contact, settling somewhere deep in her chest like a second heartbeat. Roger's eyes widened fractionally, his hand tightening around hers. "Congratulations," he said softly, his voice rough. "You pass." That night, Mira found Jacqueline pacing her chambers, one hand pressed against her chest where the warmth still lingered. "What happened?" "I don't know. When he touched me, I felt..." Jacqueline's voice broke. "Something impossible." Mira's face went pale. "Describe it." When Jacqueline did, Mira sank onto the bed. "A soul bond. The legends say it only forms between true mates. It starts with touch and grows stronger until... Until what? Until you can feel each other's emotions, sense each other's thoughts, share each other's truths." Terror flooded Jacqueline's veins. If the bond continued forming, Roger would eventually sense everything: her secret, her shame, her lies. She'd wanted to stay invisible, to fail quietly. Instead, she'd won his attention and started a mystical connection that would inevitably destroy them both. Chapter 3. Roger summoned his top 3 candidates for private audiences in the palace gardens, a courtesy that felt like a trap. Jacqueline planned to be pleasant but forgettable, interested but not too engaging. The strategy lasted approximately 10 minutes. "Your orphanage proposal mentioned education reforms," Roger said during their second meeting, his golden eyes intense. "Most nobles consider educating common children a waste of resources." "Most nobles are fools," Jacqueline replied before she could stop herself. His surprised laugh was genuine, unguarded. "Tell me what you really think." And she did. About social inequality, about wasted potential, about power's responsibility to those who have none. Roger listened with a hunger that had nothing to do with politics and everything to do with connection. When she compared his courtship trials to livestock breeding, he didn't flinch. He asked her how she'd design a better system. It was intoxicating, dangerous. Worse, during their third meeting, Jacqueline felt something bleed through their joined hands. Roger's bone-deep loneliness, his exhaustion from performing for courtiers who wanted his power but never saw him. The soul bond was showing her his heart. "It's accelerating," Mira warned that night. "Most soul bonds take months to develop emotional sharing. Yours is doing it in weeks. You're dangerously compatible." The next evening, after a heated debate about duty versus desire, Roger caught Jacqueline's wrist in the garden's shadows. "Everyone wants something from me. Everyone except you." "Why?" "Because I can't give you what you need," she whispered. "You don't know what I need." Then he kissed her, and the soul bond exploded between them like lightning. For one perfect moment, Jacqueline felt complete. His longing matching hers, his need answering something broken inside her. She could feel his heartbeat as if it were her own. She tore away, stumbling backward. "I can't. This is wrong." "Jacqueline." But she ran, his confused hurt chasing her through the bond. Alone in her chambers, Jacqueline pressed her back against the door, tears streaming down her face. She had to make him hate her, had to fail spectacularly before the bond revealed her secret and destroyed everything. It was the only way to save them both. Chapter 4. The dragon hatchlings arrived in the courtyard like liquid silver and smoke, their scales catching sunlight. Most candidates approached cautiously, offering treats and tentative touches. Jacqueline knelt directly in the dirt, letting the most aggressive hatchling, a temperamental female with scarred wings, approach on its own terms. Within minutes, the creature was curled in her lap, purring. Panic seized Jacqueline's chest. She was succeeding when she needed to fail. During her presentation, she pivoted sharply. "The trial is flawed," she announced. "Using hatchlings as tests, subjects teaches them that humans are evaluators, not companions. You're creating trauma for spectacle." Lord Theron's face darkened. Several candidates gasped. Perfect. She'd insulted the trials themselves. Then Roger stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "You're concerned about the hatchlings' welfare. Someone should be. Even if it costs you the competition, especially then." Something blazed in his golden eyes. Not anger, but something far more dangerous. "Your passion for protecting the vulnerable is noted, Lady Jacqueline. You pass." That evening across the gardens, Seraphine watched Jacqueline with calculating eyes. She summoned a cloaked messenger and pressed coins into his palm. "Ardenmore. Find everything about Lady Jacqueline's past. Medical, records, family secrets, anything that explains why she's still unmarried at 23. Later, Roger found Jacqueline alone in the library. His defenses were down, and through the soul bond, she felt his exhaustion like her own. "My father treated my mother like breeding stock," he said quietly. "Checked her monthly cycles, consulted physicians about her fertility, celebrated only when she was pregnant. I swore I'd never become him." He turned to Jacqueline, vulnerable in ways that broke her heart. "I want a partner, someone who challenges me, who sees beyond the crown." "What if your empress couldn't give you what you most needed?" Jacqueline whispered, her voice raw. Roger's hand found hers. "Then we would find another way together." The words were meant as comfort. Instead, they shattered her. Because he was offering exactly what she wanted: partnership, understanding, love without conditions, and she could never accept it without destroying him. Chapter 5. The crystal vial of truth serum gleamed on the dais like a promise of death. Lord Theron explained the trial with clinical precision. 3 questions, absolute honesty, the court as witness. Jacqueline's hands went numb. "There's an antidote," Mira whispered urgently the night before, producing a small amber bottle from her cloak. "It counteracts the serum's effects. But if they detect it—" "Execution for cheating," Jacqueline finished. She took the bottle anyway. Better to die for fraud than expose the truth that would destroy her kingdom and everyone she loved. The morning of the trial, Jacqueline dressed in pale blue silk, the antidote hidden in her sleeve. She watched Lady Alara go first, answering questions about her motivations with practiced grace. Then Seraphine, whose calculated honesty only made her seem more dangerous. Then Jacqueline's name echoed through the hall. She approached the dais, fingers closing around the hidden vial. One sip before drinking the serum, and she'd be safe. Disqualified if caught, but safe from exposure. Lord Theron offered her the crystal goblet. Jacqueline raised it to her lips, and her eyes found Roger's across the chamber. He was watching her with such naked hope, such complete trust, that her throat closed. Through the soul bond, she felt his certainty. She'll tell the truth. She's brave enough. Jacqueline lowered the goblet without drinking from her hidden vial. The truth serum burned down her throat like liquid light. "Lady Jacqueline of Ardenmoor," Lord Theron intoned. "First question, do you love the Emperor?" The answer tore itself from her lips before she could stop it. "Yes," the court murmured. Roger's sharp intake of breath was audible even from across the room. Through the bond, Jacqueline felt his shock, and something fiercer, more desperate. "Second question, is there any secret that would prevent you from being Empress?" Jacqueline's vision blurred with tears. "Yes." The murmuring grew louder. Seraphine leaned in, forward, predatory interest sharp in her eyes. Roger stood from his throne, his face pale. "Third question." The explosion shattered the eastern wall. Chaos erupted as armed rebels poured through the breach, their battle cries drowning out Lord Theron's commands. Courtiers screamed and fled. Guards formed defensive lines. Through the smoke and panic, Jacqueline saw Roger transform, his human form rippling into something magnificent and terrible, a dragon of silver and midnight blue rising to meet the threat. Mira grabbed Jacqueline's arm, dragging her toward the exits. "We have to go!" But Jacqueline couldn't move, couldn't look away from Roger as he defended his people with lethal grace. The soul bond thrummed between them, carrying his fury and fear and fierce protectiveness. The trial was suspended, the question unanswered. But Roger knew. Through the bond, through her serum-forced confessions, he knew she loved him and was hiding something that could destroy everything, and when this battle ended, he would demand to know what. Hours later, covered in dust and ash, Jacqueline stood in her chambers and stared at her reflection. The reprieve was temporary. The truth was coming. She just didn't know if she had the courage to speak it. Chapter 6. Roger found Jacqueline in the ruins of the Eastern Hall, covered in dust but unhurt. His dragon form was breathtaking, scales like starlight, wings that could blot out the sun. When he shifted back to human, blood streaked his armor, but his eyes held only relief. "You're safe," he breathed, pulling her against him. Jacqueline should have been terrified of the creature he'd become. Instead, she felt only awe. "You were magnificent." Through the bond, his surprise and pleasure flooded her senses. Later, in the quiet of the palace gardens, Roger took her hand. "Your secret, the one that would prevent you from being Empress." Jacqueline's throat tightened. Please don't ask me yet. Why? Because once you know, everything changes. Roger studied her face, and through the bond, she felt him wrestling with curiosity and respect. Finally, he squeezed her hand. When you're ready to trust me with your truth, I'll be here. The unconditional acceptance shattered something inside her. That night, lying in bed, Jacqueline felt Roger's presence through the bond. His relief that she was safe, his confusion about her secret, his growing certainty that she was meant to be his. They were sharing dreams now, emotional states bleeding between them even at a distance. 2 days later, Roger eliminated 4 candidates. Lady Jacqueline, Lady Seraphine, Lady Alara, Lady Vivian, you are the final 4. That evening, he found Jacqueline alone. You are my choice, he said quietly. The remaining trials are formality. I am waiting only for you to choose me back. His words broke her heart and filled it simultaneously. That night, Jacqueline made her decision. She would tell him everything, her infertility, her father's lies, the impossible position she was in. If he rejected her, at least she would have been honest. She walked to his chambers, rehearsing the words. The door opened before she could knock. Seraphine emerged, her smile triumphant and cold. The Emperor is occupied, she purred. Perhaps try again tomorrow. Jacqueline's world tilted. Through the bond, she felt nothing from Roger, as if he'd deliberately closed himself off. What had Seraphine told him? Chapter 7. Seraphine found Jacqueline in the library the next morning, carrying a leather portfolio that radiated malice. I thought you should see these before tomorrow's hearing. The documents spilled across the table. Jacqueline's medical records from Ardenmoor, detailed and damning. But mixed among them were letters bearing the imperial seal, correspondence between Roger and Lord Theron, discussing the infertile candidate and making an example of fraud. He's known all along, Seraphine said softly, her voice dripping false sympathy. The soul bond, the private meetings, the declarations of choice, all theater. He lets you fall in love so your execution will serve as a greater warning to anyone who dares deceive the Dragon Emperor. Jacqueline's hands trembled as she read. The documents looked authentic, the imperial seals perfect. It would explain everything. Roger's patience, his probing questions about secrets, his insistence that she choose him back. You're lying, Jacqueline whispered, but doubt poisoned her certainty. Am I? Ask yourself why he's never pressed you about your secret when he could command the truth. He's waiting for the perfect moment to destroy you publicly. Jacqueline found Roger in the throne room, the forged documents clutched in her shaking hands. You knew, she said, her voice cold with betrayal. You've known about my infertility all along. Roger's confusion flooded the soul bond. What are you talking about? Don't lie to me. I have proof. Your correspondence with Theron, your plans to make me an example. Jacqueline, I don't know what you've seen, but was any of it real? Her voice broke. Or was I just your cautionary tale? Through the bond, she felt his heartbreak, but she slammed her mental walls shut, blocking him out. Roger's face went pale at the sudden emptiness between them. If you cannot trust what our bond shows you about my heart, he said quietly, wounded, then perhaps Seraphine is right. Perhaps you are not ready to be Empress. Jacqueline fled to her chambers, tears blinding her. Mira met her at the door, face ashen. Seraphine has demanded a formal accusation hearing, Mira whispered. Tomorrow, before the entire court. The truth was coming, whether Jacqueline spoke it or not. Chapter 8. The throne room filled with courtiers hungry for spectacle. Seraphine stood before the dais, triumph carved into every perfect feature as she presented her evidence, medical records, physician testimonies, and damning letters from Jacqueline's father offering his barren daughter to secure protection. The court exploded. Lord Theron's voice cut through the chaos. Fraud against the Emperor. She must be executed immediately. Jacqueline's father, seated among the witnesses, made a sound like a wounded animal and collapsed. The other candidates called for blood, their voices sharp with righteous anger. Roger sat motionless on his throne, his face carved from stone. Through the soul bond, Jacqueline felt only vast, aching emptiness, the space where his trust had been. She'd wounded him more deeply than any political betrayal ever could. "I don't deny the charges," Jacqueline said, her voice steady despite her terror. She stepped forward, refusing to cower. "The fever at 14 left me barren. My father offered me without knowing the truth. I came here planning to fail quietly, to be rejected and sent home." She met Roger's eyes across the room. "But I fell in love with a man who saw past crowns and duty to the person underneath, who offered partnership instead of ownership. And when Seraphine showed me forged documents claiming he'd known all along, I believed them, because I couldn't trust that love might be enough for someone like me." Her voice broke. "I accused the Emperor of deception, but he has been nothing but honest. I was the one who couldn't trust, who believed I was too broken to be worthy. Seraphine didn't expose my secret. I'm exposing it myself, because the Emperor deserves better than my cowardice." The court roared for her execution. Lord Theron demanded war against Ardmore for the insult. Then Roger stood, and silence fell like a blade. "She is my choice," he said, his voice carrying absolute authority. "She remains my choice." Chapter 9. Roger descended from the throne, his golden eyes blazing with certainty. "The soul bond between Lady Jacqueline and myself proves she is my true mate, a connection that occurs once in a generation and cannot be faked or forced. I will marry her regardless of heirs. If the Empire requires a blood successor, we will adopt or name a nephew." Lord Theron surged forward. "Your Majesty, this violates centuries of tradition. Without a direct heir, the Empire could fracture. Civil war is a risk I'm willing to take for my mate." Other nobles joined the outcry, some genuinely concerned, others seeing opportunity in the chaos. Seraphine watched with barely concealed fury as her plan crumbled. Roger silenced them with a raised hand. "The legends say a true soul bond can heal wounds, extend life, merge souls permanently. If our bond is real, it will find a way." He turned to Jacqueline, extending his hand. "Do you trust me? Do you trust us?" Through the bond, Jacqueline felt his absolute faith, his unwavering love. She'd spent years believing she was broken, unworthy. But Roger saw her whole. "Yes," she whispered, taking his hand. The bonding ceremony was ancient, witnessed only by the court's highest officials. Roger and Jacqueline stood in the sacred chamber where dragon emperors had bonded with their mates for 1,000 years. As they spoke the ritual words, exchanging life essence through clasped hands and shared breath, the soul bond erupted with unprecedented power. Jacqueline gasped as searing warmth flooded her body, centering in her womb. Not painful, transformative. The bond's magic flowed through her like liquid starlight, finding the damage the fever had left and rewriting it cell by cell. Roger's eyes widened as he felt it too through their connection. Jacqueline, the court physician, summoned to verify the ritual's completion, performed the traditional examination with shaking hands. When he turned to face the assembled nobles, his voice trembled with awe. "The Lady Jacqueline is no longer infertile. The soul bond has healed her completely." The chamber erupted. Gasps, prayers, shocked silence. Lord Theron fell to his knees. Even Seraphine looked shaken by the impossible made real. 6 weeks later, the physician confirmed what Jacqueline already knew through the bond. She was pregnant. At her coronation as Empress, Jacqueline stood before the court in silver and blue, Roger's hand warm in hers. "I came here broken, hiding my shame," she said, her voice carrying across the hall. "The Emperor taught me that being worthy isn't about being perfect. It's about being brave enough to love despite our flaws. Our child will inherit not just dragon blood, but the lesson that true strength lies in vulnerability." Roger raised their joined hands. "You were never broken. You were waiting for the magic that would make you whole." Above the celestial spire, dragons circled in celebration, silver and gold, ancient and new, as the Empress and Emperor stood together. Living proof that sometimes the greatest power is not in what we can give, but in who we choose to become for love. The soul bond hummed between them, complete and unbreakable, promising a future built not on perfection, but on the courage to love anyway. The end. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Help us reach 1,000 subscribers and keep our community growing. Share this tale of love, healing, and second chances with someone who needs to hear it today. Your support means everything